Freedom of Information Act leaks CIA documents, future pole shift, 1,000-mile-per-hour winds, and 10,000-foot high tidal wave burying North America in less than 3 hours. It's titled The Adam and Eve Story by Chan Thomas. I was fortunate enough to actually find a 1965 copy, autographed and inscribed by the author. Just ordered it, should get this any day now. Super excited. But this is literally a sanitized copy that I'm going to share with you now. And yeah, they put some hand sanitizer on it to make it palatable for you guys. But why in the world would the Central Intelligence Agency classify a 65-page story of cataclysms, Adam and Eve, unless there's something to it? Maybe it isn't just highly concentrated swamp gas from Uranus. Let me read some excerpts from this to you guys right now. An audible low rumble grows to a thundering roar. The earthquake starts unlike any in recorded history. California, the mountain shakes like ferns in a breeze. Pacific Ocean rears back, piling into a mountain of water more than 2 miles in height, then races eastward. With the force of 1,000 armies, the wind destroys everything in its path with supersonic bombardment. A mountain of Pacific seawater follows the wind east, burying Los Angeles and San Francisco like grains of sand. Nothing stops the onslaught of wind and ocean. Across the continent, 1,000-mile-per-hour winds and earthquakes leave not one place untouched. Any places the Earth's molten sublayer breaks through and spreads a sea of white-hot liquid fire, adding to the doomlicious Armageddon exotica. I added that. Do you like that? Within 3 hours, the wall of water buries the land under 2 miles of water, coast to coast. Antarctica and Greenland, with their ice caps, now rotate around the Earth in the torrid zone. What does that mean? Well, let me show you. Here's the torrid zone. Hold on a second. Will you just look at it? There we go. The torrid zone. Well, that's where Costa Rica is. So you're saying that the ice caps are going to be in central Earth now. Central torrid zone. Wow, that's quite the change, folks. That's quite the change. Now, let's go back to this sanitized copy. Once again, I can't wait to get the original autographed and inscribed by the author. I'm so glad that I was fortunate enough to get a copy of this. Super excited. But let me share with you a little bit here. Talks about the next cataclysm, the great floods, the story, the event, Genesis, and the conclusion of the author. But the next cataclysm, like Noah's 6,500 years ago, like Adam and Eve's 11,500 years ago, this too will come to pass. So I shared with you just bits and pieces, with a rumble so low as to be inaudible, growing, throbbing, then turning into a thundering roar. The earthquake starts, only it's not like any earthquake in recorded history. Now that sounds like also maybe some type of weaponry used to cause the earthquake. In California, the mountains shake like ferns in a breeze. The mighty Pacific rears back and piles up into a mountain of water more than 2 miles high, then starts its race eastward. So, a mile is what, 5,400 and something feet? That's 11,000 feet spanning the North American continent from west to east in 3 hours. So that would make me think that even Denver, the mile-high city, is not going to be safe unless, here's what I think. Let's say that there's some validity to this vision, to this story, that a 2-mile-high tidal wave starts from California. It's not going to be 2 miles by the time 2 miles in height by the time it reaches Colorado. With the force of 1,000 armies, the wind attacks, ripping, shredding everything in its supersonic bombardment. The unbelievable mountain of Pacific seawater follows the wind eastward, burying Los Angeles and San Francisco as if they were but grains of sand. Nothing but nothing stops the relentless, overwhelming onslaught of wind and ocean across the continent. The 1,000-mile-per-hour wind wreaks its unholy vengeance everywhere. Mercilessly, unceasingly, every living thing is ripped into shreds while being blown across the countryside, and the earthquake leaves no place untouched. In many places, the Earth's molten sublayer breaks through and spreads a sea of white-hot liquid fire to add to the Holocaust. Sounds like Yellowstone. Within 3 hours, the fantastic wall of water moves across the continent, burying the wind-ravaged land under 2 miles of seething water coast to coast. In a fraction of a day, all vestiges of civilization are gone, and the great cities, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Chicago, Dallas, New York, are nothing but legends. Barely a stone is left where millions walked just a few hours before. A few lucky ones who managed to find shelter from the screaming wind on the lee side of Pikes Peak watch the sea of molten fire break through the quaking valleys below. The raging waters follow, piling higher and higher, steaming over the molten earth fire and rising almost to their feet. Only great mountains such as this one can withstand the cataclysmic onslaught. North America is not alone in her death throes. Central America suffers the same cannonade. And Gatorade. Would you like some Gatorade? It has battery acid in it, but it's good for you. What was that stuff they were putting in Gatorade? And then that little girl exposed them, and they're like, "Oh, okay, you're right. We're sorry. We won't put battery acid in anymore." It was some type of, it wasn't battery acid, but it was some type of nasty chemical. And the news made it seem as if the little people won because Gatorade decided to take this nasty chemical out of their product. It's like, "Okay, we're sorry." All right, I'm divagating. Let's get back to this. A few lucky ones who managed to find shelter from the screaming wind on the lee side of Pike Peak watch the sea of molten fire break through the quaking valleys below. The raging waters follow, piling higher and higher, streaming over the molten earth fire and rising almost to their feet. North America is not alone in her death throes. Central America suffers the same cannonade. Wind, earth, fire, and South America finds the Andes not high enough to stop the cataclysmic violence pounded out by nature in her berserker rage. In less than a day, Ecuador, Peru, and western Brazil are shaken madly by the devastating earthquake, burned by molten earth fire, buried under cubic miles of torrential Pacific seas, and then turned into frozen hell. Everything freezes. Man, beast, plant, and mud are all rock hard in less than 4 hours. Europe cannot escape the onslaught. The raging Atlantic piles higher and higher upon itself, following the screeching wind eastward. The Alps, Pyrenees, Urals, Scandinavian mountains are shaken and heaved even higher before the wall of water strikes. Western Africa, the sands of the Saharas vanish in nature's wrath. Under savage attack by wind and ocean, the area bounded by the Congo, South Africa, and Kenya suffers only severe earthquakes and winds. No inundation. Survivors there marvel at the sun standing still in the sky for nearly half a day. So the sun stands still for half a day. Eastern Siberia, the Orient suffer a strange fate indeed. as though a giant subterranean skith sweeps away the Earth's foundations, accompanied by the wind and its screaming symphony of supersonic death and destruction, as the Arctic basin leaves its polar home. Eastern Siberia, Manchuria, China, and Burma are subjected to the same annihilation as South America. Wind, earth fire, inundation, and freezing. Jungle animals are shredded to ribbons by the wind, piled into mountains of flesh and bone, and buried under avalanches of seawater and mud. Then comes the terrible, paralyzing cold. Not man, nor beast, nor plant, nor earth is left unfrozen in the entire eastern Asian continent, most of which remains below sea level. A few lucky people survive the fantastic winds and quakes east of the Urals. Wow. Antarctica and Greenland, with their ice caps, now rotate around the Earth in the torrid zone, and the fury of wind and inundation marches on for 6 days and nights. During the 6th day, the oceans start to settle in their new homes, running off the high grounds. On the 7th day, the horrendous rampage is over. The Arctic Ice Age is ended, and a new Stone Age begins. The oceans, the great homogenizers, have laid down another deep layer of mud over the existing strata, and the Great Plains is exposed in the Grand Canyon, Painted Desert, and Badlands. Love those areas, by the way. Love the Badlands. Love the Painted Desert. Haven't been to the Grand Canyon yet, but I've been to the Canyon Lands, which is like two Grand Canyons connected together. And I like the Canyon Lands more because you can actually go into the Canyon Lands. Go check out the Island in the Sky. Oh, wait, I'm divagating. Let's go back. The Bay of Bengal Basin, just east of India, is now at the North Pole. The Pacific Ocean, just west of Peru, is at the South Pole. Greenland and Antarctica, now rotating equatorially in the torrid zone, find their ice caps dissolving madly in the tropical heat. Massive walls of water and ice surge towards the oceans, taking everything from mountain to plains in gushing, heaving paths, creating immense seasonal moraines. Did I say that right? In less than 25 years, the ice caps are gone, and the oceans around the world rise over 200 feet with the newfound water. The torrid zone will be shrouded in a fog for generations from the enormous amounts of moisture poured into the atmosphere by the melting ice caps. Now ice caps begin to form in the new polar areas. Greenland and Antarctica emerge with verdant tropical foliage. Sorry guys, I can't read. English isn't my first language. Australia is the new unexplored continent in the north temperate zone, with only a few handfuls of survivors populating its vastness. New York lies at the bottom of the Atlantic, shattered, melted by earth fire, and covered by unbelievable amounts of mud. Of San Francisco and Los Angeles, not a trace is left. Egypt emerges from its Mediterranean inundation, new and higher, still the land of the ages, the commonplace of our time, because the mysterious Baalbek of the new era. Well, I'm going to stop there and let you get your own copy if you can find one. Or when I get my autographed, inscribed copy in the next few days, I will read more to you. This is pretty spooky, and it makes sense at the same time. This guy or this author that put this information together took information from Casey, Nostradamus, and others, and looking at the forecasts has very similar eerie forecasts and projections. I just said that twice. Oops. When you look at the timelines, are we getting close to this event? And is there a way to offset this event? Is this a natural disaster? Is this a man-made disaster? Is this something that can be diverted? Pick up your copy today, The Adam and Eve Story of Chan Thomas, before it's too late. Question everything, be excellent to each other, and be the change you want to see.